There are nearly 7 billion people on our planet, more than twice as many as there were just 45 years ago. But what if the population of the world doubled again in an instant?
There are shocking reports of chaos and violence at border crossings.
It's a massive migration north. Millions flee the ruins of Mexico City.
There are water riots in Los Angeles for the third straight day. The aqueducts are dry.
Can we find enough room to live? Enough food to eat? Enough air to breathe? Enough water to drink? This is what would happen if the world's population quickly hit 14 billion. The Earth hasn't always been a crowded place. When the pyramids were built, there were less than 30 million people on our planet. "4,000 years later, as London's Big Ben was being built, the world's population reached 1 billion for the first time. Just 80 years later, as Mount Rushmore was carved, the population had doubled to 2 billion. The next doubling took only 45 years, just after the World Trade Center opened in 1973. We keep growing at an astounding speed, adding the population equivalent of 10 New York cities to our world every year. If we keep expanding at this rate, the population will double again in 59 years. But the world is already straining to handle 7 billion. What would happen if the population doubled again right now? In New York, Asia, all over the planet, every single country is overwhelmed. The world is suddenly a very crowded, frustrated planet. All the people on Earth need food, water. They need places to live. Countries will be transformed.
We're celebrating the birth of America's first baby of the new year. The population will top 620 million this year.
Beijing is racing to finish its first 200-story apartment building, more than 800 meters high. 10 more are planned for the coming year.
New York's mayor approves the construction of the city's first super skyscraper.
It's been 6 months since the world's population doubled. All over the world, there's an unprecedented building boom to create homes for the world's 14 billion people. Los Angeles, trapped between the ocean and the hills, builds anywhere it can. The 1¼ square kilometers of Chavez Ravine, home to Dodger Stadium, is one of the targets. In Manhattan, there is nowhere to go but up. Architects struggle to find the best, fastest way to handle the population bomb. They begin to design and build the world's largest skyscrapers, more than 200 stories tall. These massive new towers are extremely heavy, up to 1 million tons. The easiest way to support these gargantuan towers is to build on bedrock so they don't sink into the earth. In Manhattan, some of the world's first skyscrapers were built on Wall Street, where the bedrock is so close to the surface. Now, the buildings will soar much higher. While billions wait for new housing, we're fighting claustrophobia. Families crowd together in motels, offices, wherever they can find space. But housing isn't the world's only problem. We're running out of food. Before the population doubled, the world's farms occupied an area equal to that of the entire continent of South America. To feed our doubled population, we need to create vast new farmland, almost twice the size of the United States. Forests are the first target. Thousands of square kilometers are chopped down for new farms, but it will take as much as a year to clear and plant the land. In North Africa, Egypt brings water into the Sahara Desert to create new farmland. Before the population doubled, nations had stockpiled enough corn and wheat to feed the world for 12 weeks. Now, China and India have eaten through their grain reserves. 5 billion people are hungry. It's not just grains. There are more than 240 million dairy cattle in the world. But a female dairy cow isn't milked until it's 24 months old. Milk production falls far behind. The price of food jumps dramatically.
Economists are calling it hyperinflation. The average trip to the grocery store costs $700.
The United States has an advantage over many other countries. Every year, it used to export 72 million tons of grain, including 45 million tons of corn, more than a quarter of what was grown. Now, the country stops all exports.
For the third day in a row, UN delegates attack the Feed America First campaign.
To find more food for this new world, hungry countries turn to the oceans more than ever. Enormous nets capture fish up to 1.5 kilometers deep. In China, the world's largest fishing industry lands 4 million tons of fish every month. The push to feed a hungry population threatens our basic infrastructure. A growing fleet of trucks hauls food 24 hours a day. A third of the highways in the United States were already in need of repair. They can't take around-the-clock pounding.
death toll is estimated at over 60, with many more feared trapped inside.
The Department of Transport has announced the closing of thousands of bridges until crews can inspect them all.
It's been just 6 months, and the world is struggling to deal with the massive demands of 14 billion people. For food, for places to live. And the biggest crisis hasn't even hit.
It's the biggest housing crisis of all time. 3 billion people without permanent homes.
More than 100,000 people are now living on the Mall in Washington, in clear view of Capitol Hill. For now, the president refuses to evict them.
200,000 people are squatting in Central Park, on land once valued at $500 billion.
It's been a year since the number of people on Earth doubled. Countries are in crisis. Tent cities spring up everywhere. In New York, new subway trains have been added. They arrive every 2 minutes. The system can't safely handle anymore. Now, almost 500,000 people pass through Times Square station each day. The crush is suffocating. On the streets, buses try to cope with the overload. A single bus keeps 25 cars off the road, but it's not enough. Architects finished designing the first of several new super skyscrapers, 200 stories tall. 10,000 people can live in one city block. Super skyscrapers soar around the world. Some of these enormous buildings have holes near the top to let high winds pass through. But in China, there's a problem.
The 200-story building was built on top of an undiscovered fault line. The weight of the building triggered an earthquake.
Rescue workers pick through the rubble. Officials say there are more than 3,000 dead.
Los Angeles teeters on 6 major fault lines. The fear of earthquakes keeps most buildings below 20 stories, including the new apartments in the Chavez Ravine. As soon as the first building is complete, it's overcrowded. The age of the single-family home is over. Cities are bursting with people. There's a price for all the new construction. It can take over 100 trees to build just one wood-framed house. 5 million homes require a forest the size of Rhode